So intelligence itself, I'm claiming, is a holistic thing inherently. When we say someone is intelligent or more intelligent than somebody else, what we really mean is that their intelligence is more holistic. In a sense, you can think of intelligence as holistic pattern recognition, which leads to insight, which is also basically identical to intuition. It's the ability to interconnect dots and to grasp the entirety of a situation in one single snapshot, not in bits and pieces. It's to see the whole picture of a situation. For example, you walk into a room, like let's say you walk into your mother's house, and you see a gun on the floor, and you see blood splattered on the carpet, and you see the vase has been broken, and you see the door has been busted in, the window has been broken. You see that, and then intelligence is the ability to interconnect all of those separate elements and to recognize a crime has occurred. Whereas a lack of intelligence is to walk in there and to just kind of look around and to see these different things and to not be able to interconnect them all together and to be clueless about what's going on. There are a few other features of the highest intelligence. Highest intelligence includes the ability to see context very deeply, the ability to go meta and to transcend, the ability to self-reflect, the ability to take on multiple perspectives and higher perspectives, the ability to be unbiased and selfless, and equal concern for all levels of the hierarchy. I want you to contemplate for yourself why these things are the case as you contemplate what intelligence is and as you experience higher levels of intelligence. But I'll give you some answers that I have come to in my own contemplations. So, why, for example, is seeing context so important for the highest intelligence? Well, it's because if you don't see the context of a thing, you can easily get fooled by a thing. You can easily misunderstand what the true nature of a thing is by missing its context. Just because I cut out a single sentence from a book, I can use that single sentence to completely misrepresent what that book is about. To understand that single sentence, I would have to read the whole book to really understand its context, or at the very least, read the paragraph or the page or the chapter that that sentence is on. So there's no way that the highest intelligence can be non-context aware, because that's how foolishness happens. And the highest intelligence can't be foolish. Okay, how about the ability to go meta and to transcend? Why is that an inherent feature of the highest intelligence? So the ability to transcend or to go meta is to step outside of some system that you're thinking about or that you're in. Really, we're talking about awareness, self-awareness. So the reason that it's important for the highest intelligence to be able to go meta is because if it doesn't go meta, it's enwrapped and entangled in the thing that it's trying to understand. So, for example, I could be using language right now as I'm speaking and not be meta about it, and then I would just be sort of using this language unconsciously. Whereas if I was using this language in a meta way, I would be conscious of the fact that I'm using language as I'm talking about language. This creates a sort of a self-awareness loop. And this is a feature of high intelligence. Because see, if you're interacting in the world and you're treating the world as just some object that you're interacting with, but you're not taking into consideration your own self in relation to that thing, then you don't have an understanding of the entire situation and you're going to make foolish mistakes So you need to be able to interconnect everything for the highest intelligence. The more you interconnect things, the more intelligent you are. And so you have to be able to interconnect the fact that you are participating in the creative process of the universe. So it's not just that I'm using language, I'm actually constructing this language as I'm going, and I need to be aware of that. Likewise, when I'm doing science, it's not just that I'm doing science. I need to be able to go meta on science and recognize that, yes, I'm doing science, but I'm also creating the science as I'm doing it. And I have to take responsibility for that. And for that, I need to be able to go meta and to transcend science. I got to do meta science, epistemology, metaphysics. Why is the ability to self-reflect a feature of the highest intelligence? Basically for the same reason. Self-reflection is basically a form of going meta on your own self. Ultimately, when you become completely selfless, you realize that there's nothing but the self. It's a sort of a strange loop and an inversion where it goes full circle. You have the infinite self. Everything is the self. When you realize you're not the human self, that means that you're the universe. That's what it means. So if you are the universe, if all there is the self and nothing else, that means the highest intelligence must necessarily be able to recognize and reflect on itself. Because if it's not reflecting on itself, then what is it trying to understand? You're always trying to understand some aspect of yourself, no matter what you're trying to understand. If you're trying to understand evil, really, you're just trying to understand more about yourself, because you are evil. If you're trying to understand good, you're trying to understand more of yourself, because you're good. If you're trying to understand women, you're trying to understand yourself. If you're trying to understand men, if you're trying to understand a dog, all of these are just aspects of consciousness. It's the universe trying to understand itself. So the universe, at its highest level of intelligence, needs to be able to self-reflect. And that's one of the characteristics of wisdom. This is actually a feature of consciousness, is its ability to self-reflect, because consciousness is itself. What about perspective? Why is it important for the highest intelligence to be able to take multiple perspectives? Because if you're only taking one perspective, by definition, that's a limitation of all the other perspectives that consciousness could experience. Consciousness has an infinite capacity to generate perspectives, literally infinite perspectives. It's a field of infinite perspective. So if you're only taking one perspective on a thing, you're seeing it from a very narrow, limited angle. Similar to like if we were looking at an elephant and you only looked at it from a single angle, you wouldn't see the whole elephant. You'd only see one part of the elephant, and that would not give you a deep understanding of the whole elephant. To understand the whole elephant, you really want to have one of those matrix cameras where you can just like circle all around the elephant from every angle, even go inside of the elephant. Zoom in, zoom out. Then you can appreciate what the elephant really is. So the highest intelligence needs to be able to be so flexible that it can take all of these different perspectives. This is why we talk about the sort of perspectival nature of reality. Go check out my episode called What If Reality is Nothing But Perspective, where I talk about that. One of the biggest problems with science is that materialistic science does not really understand just how multi-perspectival reality is. And this creates all sorts of problems for it. Because science wants to remove the subjective element from reality, but reality is absolutely subjective. So what are you trying to do? You're fooling yourself. And this problem happens because science is not able to self-reflect sufficiently, and it's not able to go meta sufficiently to understand that subjectivity is all that there is to reality. There's nothing else but subjectivity. And so because of this, science is not operating at the highest level of intelligence. The highest level of intelligence would understand this. But the only way to understand this is to go meta, to self-reflect, and to see reality from all these different perspectives. And now finally, why is the ability to be unbiased and selfless so crucial to the highest intelligence? Because ultimately everything is yourself. Ultimately, everything is one. So really, ultimately, it makes no difference whether you like that thing, or hate this thing, or hate this thing. All of these are just biases. These biases are what selfishness is. Selfishness is saying that, well, I like this part of consciousness, but I hate that part of consciousness. This part of consciousness serves me, that part of consciousness doesn't serve me. But look at it like this. If you recognize that you are the entire thing, then how can anything serve you or not serve you? How can you really care about one thing more than another thing? It makes no sense. That only makes sense from the limited ego's perspective. So the only way you can really be selfish and biased is when you fool yourself into thinking that you're some limited aspect of consciousness and not the entire thing. If you realize you're the entire thing, then all the biases become groundless and unjustified. And that's the highest intelligence. The highest intelligence in the universe is selflessness and a lack of all biases.